But our job here needs to be all we can do. When the window's open, we've got to go through that window. The window's open to pass the heartbeat bill now. 170 co-sponsors. We have 129 national organizations / leaders that support the heartbeat bill. It's about as close to unanimous across the entire movement in this country as it could possibly be. So with 170 co-sponsors and another high number of those who say, I'll vote for it, put it on the floor, the vast majority of the pro-life caucus wants it to come to the floor. The vast majority of the Values Action Team wants it to come to the floor. I actually don't know who the dissenters are here in the House that say it's a bad idea to have the heartbeat bill in law. There are a couple of people that disagree with the strategy, but they don't disagree with the policy, at least on this side of the aisle, Mr. Speaker. So, when the leadership tells the top pro-life organizations in the country, you must be unanimous in this and all of you on the same page, and when one organization says, I don't want to see this moved, then we have a problem. We have a problem because the will of the people needs to be reflected here in the House of Representatives. This is a Republican form of government by Constitution. The Constitution guarantees a Republican form of government, which means a representative form of government. That is, each one of us who will be elected here, we have a district of about 750,000 people. And it's our job to draw from them their best ideas and couple them with the principles that we have said we stand for, come here and bring those ideas into the House of Representatives, and then let those ideas out of 435 congressional districts compete against each other so that the best ideas rise to the top. The ideas that rise to the top need to be the ideas that have the most support, not something that was pulled off the shelf and dropped in down here as in a bit of a token for something to do here on March for Life Day. What's the most important thing we can be doing? Saving innocent unborn human life. What's the highest priority we should have? The highest priority for the members of the House of Representatives. What pro-life bill has the most co-sponsors on it? By far, that's the heartbeat bill. And so why wasn't it on the floor here today, Mr. Speaker? Why not? And the reason is because I believe that there was shall I call it, an arrangement made by a previous speaker that pro-life legislation only moves when it's unanimously supported by the top 3 pro-life organizations in the country. And I will name them. And I count them all as people who have done a lot of good for this country. Family Research Council, Tony Perkins, a tremendous pro-life, pro-family warrior. And that's also true, we know, because his office has been targeted in the past, and they face violence down there in the entryway to his office. Tony doesn't blink. He's a former Marine. We've ridden the road together and been out there in those battles, and they are a strong, strong pro-life organization, one of the top 3. Susan B. Anthony List, another one of the top 3. And that's led by Marjorie Dannenfelser, who has a terrific heart and very driven and awfully intelligent and a terrific memory about the components of the movement that have gone on. And her sidekick, I'll call her that, is an even closer friend, Marilyn Musgrave, whom I served here in the House of Representatives with for a good number of years. And she was a mentor to me, and she braced me up sometimes when I was trying to make sense of things that didn't make sense. And I count them as friends and pro-life warriors and terrific workers and people that are go-to people that I count on keeping things on the rails while I'm distracted with other things. But we're always on the same page together, almost always on the same page together, Mr. Speaker. The other organizations are National Right to Life. National Right to Life has been granted also a de facto veto power that the effect of it is to block a bill from coming to the floor of the House of Representatives. Now, I've said there are 129 organizations and leaders that have endorsed and or support the heartbeat bill, H.R. 490. There's only one that does not, and that's the National Right to Life. And that's led by Carol Tobias and David Osteen. And I've spoken with both of them at great length, not in person. I've been trying to get those kind of meetings, but it's been more effective. I've been trying to get those kind of meetings, but we spoke on the phone, Mr. Speaker. And with Carol Tobias, the president, before Christmas, a week or so before our Christmas break, about 45 minutes of intense discussion. And throughout all of that, she's insisted that they're not going to endorse the bill, they're not going to promote the bill, and I couldn't get her to move 1 inch, even though every other organization is on board. I couldn't get her to move 1 inch. She told me that they'd had a board meeting, it sounded to me like a couple of months earlier, and that nobody on the board supported the heartbeat bill. How big is that board? This is back channel. I'm told about 50. Can you imagine 50 pro-life activists sitting on the board of National Right to Life, and not one of them thinks that protecting a baby that has a detectable heartbeat is an endeavor that they want to support right now, when their mission statement says something entirely different? Well, that didn't seem right to me, and I hope there was another way to get this resolved. And I told her at the end of the conversation, I guess we've got a couple weeks before the tension starts to build, but I don't have many nice things I can do yet. And I don't think your advice is going to be to me to just give up and put the heartbeat bill in a drawer and say H.R. 490 was a try, but we came up short, so I guess it wasn't a good idea. How would I go to those 129 organizations and leaders and say to them, well, I think we'll just give up now because National Right to Life is not supporting our bill? Because Carol Tobias and 50 members of the board, presumably, and also David Osteen, don't think it's a good idea to move a heartbeat bill out of the House of Representatives, that they want to wait till the Supreme Court is ready to receive such a bill, apparently without calculating that it takes time to get legislation through the House and the Senate and to the President's desk. And it may not happen in this year. If we put the heartbeat bill on Mitch McConnell's desk in the Senate, it may not happen that the bill would even be taken up. We've got to have time to bring that bill to the floor of the Senate. We're going to have to work it. I want time to do that. The longer we stall, the closer we get to the next election. If we get to the next election and lose seats in the House of Representatives, Mr. Speaker, this window in the House could close. And then what do they say? They'll say, well, it was our judgment. We wanted to wait until the Supreme Court was ready. It wasn't our fault that the window closed in the House or the Senate or perhaps the presidency. When you have the opportunity to move the agenda, you move the agenda. We have the opportunity to do that. And it is de facto veto power right now that the National Right to Life has because of that arrangement that was put together some years ago that says these top 3 pro-life organizations have to all be in agreement before we're going to move any legislation off the floor of the House. Why would any speaker grant de facto authority to an outside organization, none of whom have been elected in this Republican form of government? Why would that be allowed to trump the will of the people? Why would that have more value than the considered judgment of the vast majority of the Republican majority conference in the House of Representatives? How can we say to any one of those 170, your opinion doesn't matter at all because you don't yet have the unanimous enthusiasm behind the top 3 pro-life organizations in the country? It comes back to National Right to Life, who say, they put out a statement that says, we do not oppose the heartbeat bill. We do not oppose the heartbeat bill. The other side of that coin is, and it's the same coin, we do not support the heartbeat bill. That's the message. That's the message that Speaker Ryan gets, and that's why this bill wasn't on the floor today. It's the blockage that comes from inactivity. And all that needs to happen is David Osteen or Carol Tobias needs to pick up the phone, call Speaker Paul Ryan, call my office if you like, and I'll patch you through, and say, you know what, we want to move it while we got the chance, because the window is open in the House of Representatives. You don't have to do a single thing beyond that. You don't have to whip the bill. You don't have to go visit any members. You don't have to spend a single dime of those hard-earned dollars that are being raised in the pro-life movement, except for the cost of the phone call, and I'll pay for it. Call the Speaker, call Leader McCarthy and say, you know what, we do think it's a good idea. Why, instead of saying we do not oppose